If I wanted to become a software engineer in 2025, this is everything I would do right now.
I'm a software engineer.
How much do you make?
$191K.
How long have you been doing it?
A year.
I make $188,000.
How much money do you make per year as a software engineer?
$500K. I have around 3 to 4 years of experience.
My base salary is $157,000.
In this video, I'm going to be revealing the 5-level pyramid to becoming a software engineer. You have to go in order because each level builds on the previous one, and it gets smaller as we go up because it gets more challenging, and there are only a few people who can get to the top properly. So I hope you're ready to take your career to the next level, and with that being said, let's get started right away. Coming in at level 1 is learning how to code. But this is where many people make a huge mistake. They fall into tutorial hell. This is what happens when you spend all your time watching endless coding tutorials, thinking you're learning, but you're not actually building anything or solving problems. If all you do is watch motivational, productive TED Talks, but you don't do anything differently, you haven't learned anything. Especially coding, it's not like biology or psychology where you mainly memorize vocabulary terms. You actually have to shift your mindset, roll up your sleeves, and become a problem solver. And you do that by following the build to code framework. Here's how it goes. First, start by learning some foundational computing concepts just to get your feet wet and establish your mindset. Consider taking CS50 course by Harvard. It's beginner friendly and completely free. It covers topics like algorithms, data structures, and computer architecture. It gives you theory with hands-on problem solving, teaching you how to think like a programmer. I'm not sponsored by them at all, by the way, but I think it's a perfect place to start if you have no experience or background. For example, I took this course during my 9th grade summer because it's pretty flexible. You could do it at your own pace. They even give you a community to help you out. And once you have your mindset established as a problem solver, now we can actually start to learn how to code. So here we pick a coding language. For beginners, I recommend Python. It's easy to learn and widely used in pretty much everything from web development, data science, and machine learning. Other solid options are Java or JavaScript. They're great for a backend and front-end software engineering respectively. Plus, I learned data structures and algorithms, which is essential for technical interviews in Java myself. Once you've chosen your language, dive into free resources like Coded.io, which makes you learn Python through a fun video game-like environment similar to Legends of Zelda. You solve challenges like writing for loops, conditionals, creating functions to beat in-game enemies. You even get to dabble a little bit with object-oriented programming, which is essential for technical interviews, but more on that later. Or if you want a simple traditional way to learn, Free Code Camp is a great resource and they offer free Python lessons. While learning the basics of coding, start building simple projects to put your knowledge into practice. That's where this whole build to code terminology comes from. For example, you can create a to-do list app which helps you understand user input, lists, and data persistence by allowing users to add, delete, and mark tasks as complete. Build a calculator where you can practice implementing functions, conditionals, and basic arithmetic operations to perform calculations. Or build a web scraper which introduces you to working with libraries like Beautiful Soup or requests to extract and parse data through websites. These small projects will help you understand how to actually apply concepts you learn, and you will not be stuck in tutorial hell henceforth. So once you're comfortable with the basics of coding, it is time to go from level 1 to level 2, and that is where we work on actual projects. We did some baby projects in level 1, sure, but those won't actually count going forward. Projects are your work experience before you get formal work. When you're a full-time software engineer or even an intern, your day-to-day work is just doing various projects. Hence, before you get employed, you need to do quality projects on your own to showcase that you have the skills required for the job itself. So here are 3 project ideas at various levels of difficulty. First, a great beginner project is a personal expense tracker. This is a practical tool that helps you manage your income and expenses by analyzing your spending habits. You can use libraries like Panda for data manipulation and Matplotlib for creating visualizations like graphs and charts. To make it even more engaging, add a user interface by using Flask. If you think that you've done a really good job on this, you can even deploy it or sell it to other people to use as a side hustle. A level above this, for a little bit of a challenge, try building a password manager project. This project introduces you to basic cybersecurity concepts and gives you a chance to work with Python's cryptography library. By encrypting and securely storing passwords, you can create functional systems that retrieves them on demand. For a more polished experience, you can consider adding a GUI, graphical user interface, with Pygame. And because this is a pretty impactful project which affects the security of systems, depending on how you frame it verbally in interviews or even on your resume, this could become a pretty big deal. For a step above this, an advanced level project, consider creating a chatbot using NLP, natural language processing. Start simple by training your chatbot to respond with predefined answers using Python's NLTK library. But once you've mastered the basics, you can integrate more sophisticated features like handling real-time conversations using APIs like Google Speech to enable voice interactions. And everyone and their mom nowadays has some sort of AI machine learning project, so this project will give you the right amount of hands-on experience in that field while incorporating it into a software engineering workflow. But overall, the specific technologies don't matter as much as the complexity and the impactfulness of the project itself. For example, if one person creates a machine learning weather application and someone else creates a simple web app, but it helps local restaurants reallocate and reduce food wastage by 50%, the second person is far more impressive because their project was way more impactful. You need to be able to explain the why behind your project. And if you're looking for more inspiration, check out Practical Tutorials repository on GitHub. It has many different project ideas for different programming languages, plus some tutorials. Now we're going to kick it a further notch up. You have your background set. Now let's transition into setting yourself up for a career in software engineering. Level 3 is your resume. And no, we're not going to deal with an average resume. I'm going to be revealing the exact resume that landed me a software engineering role at Amazon while in college. I'll also point out subtle psychological tricks to make your resume stand out amongst hundreds of thousands of applicants in this market. Let's put my resume up on the screen and let's dive in. So starting with the header, your name should be bold and centered for easy recognition. Include 2 contact methods, your email for interviews, your phone number for technical screenings. Add your LinkedIn alias for profile, your GitHub to showcase your projects and open source contributions. If you are a US citizen with a non-traditional American name like myself, mention your citizenship status. Companies generally try to avoid sponsorships when they can, so highlighting your citizenship status will give you a little bit of an edge. Next is your education. Bold your school name and city and italicize your degree and graduation date. And if you are a student, make sure to explicitly use the words expected graduation date on your resume because it subtly does give the psychological impression that you are a little older as a student. And that is super important because companies generally try to avoid hiring freshmen and sophomores. I then listed my relevant coursework, and something that I did was I actually changed my course titles. For example, the computing and Python course you see here on my resume, the actual name of it at my university, Georgia Tech, it's called Intro to Computing there. But I changed it up to align it with the technical skills that best represent what is optimized for the ATS system. Going down to the experience section. So here you need to be sure to use the XYZ format. This is actually the format Google recommends its engineers to use. And what it basically says is for each bullet point, you want to say something along the lines of accomplished X through Y, resulting in Z impact. For example, I described in this one project how I used Python and I created this UI and I tracked algorithmic performance, which resulted in outcomes of this % accuracy. Numbers are essential because they quantify the impact and draw eyeballs to your resume. And this could be anything. It could be a % accuracy. It could be like, hey, I was a leader of a 200 member club. It could be like, I created a game that has 8,000 App Store downloads. No one actually cares about your projects unless you make them care. And by quantifying it, you do make them care. Next section, right on cue, is projects. I did a stock predictor machine learning project. I listed models like neural networks, naive Bayes, linear regression, along with performance metrics because once again, numbers are important. 2 big mistakes I see a lot of people make is either they will just list out their projects that they completed in a bullet point list without any elaboration. Cool, you got a fancy title of an AI project you did, but no one knows what it's about, so who cares? Second mistake is sometimes for a project, people will just list out technologies without any explanation of how they used it within it. That's why it's like the through Y part of the XYZ format is super important because employers don't really care the fact that you know Java. They want to know how deep and how far you know it. Did you just use Java to develop a baby calculator application, or did you use a Spring Boot framework to deploy a full stack web application? Then comes the activities and leadership section. I put in my university clubs that I was part of, like the web development where I learned HTML, CSS, and React, and a data science club where I gained skills in Python libraries like NumPy and TensorFlow. Even though I wasn't super involved in the club and I didn't really have so much to show, I made sure to emphasize the skills. That way I stood out more in the ATS system. Now the skills section, and this is the only part of your resume where it's okay to not necessarily list items in full detailed sentences. Avoid unnecessary qualifiers like Python parentheses beginner or Java parentheses intermediate, because I fundamentally believe that if you just put like, oh, I'm a beginner in this language, it almost gives the idea that you don't know much. Like, okay, you know hello world in that language, but what good does that do you in terms of employment? Not much really. I fundamentally believe that if you put a language on your resume, you should be at least intermediate in it. So you don't need to be a full-on expert, but you should be good enough. But overall, just make sure your resume is properly formatted. If you want this exact template that I have right here, I got a link for it in the description, but get it after you watch the full video. I would very much appreciate that. Coming in at level 4, so you have your resume, you have your experiences, level up. Now we need to actually get you a job. And for that, we have applications and referrals. And within this, obviously, you know how to apply to jobs. I don't need to tell you how to apply to jobs. You go to career fairs, networking events, LinkedIn, GitHub, Reddit, Levels FIA, pretty much apply anywhere and everywhere. The hard part is once you actually apply, how do you get a call back? Because you're applying in an ocean of hundreds of thousands of candidates. And I was actually recently talking to an ex-Google Apple recruiter asking why it's so hard to get a call back in this market. And he said, it's because of AI. AI auto applies to jobs for people. There are AI tools that scrape the market, job boards, and as soon as a position opens up, it applies on your behalf. A job was just posted 2 minutes ago and it already has 200 plus applicants. Well, how does that happen? AI, mass applications. So how do we beat it? How do you beat it? You need to get a referral. And I know you're saying, oh, referrals are so hard to come by. Like, referrals are no longer nice to haves. They are almost at the point where it's a must have. And when it comes to referrals, there are also 3 levels to getting a referral. Not all referrals are made equal, and let's go one by one. First, we got level 1. This is what everyone knows about. This is when you reach out to someone who works at a company you're interested in, like you wanna work at Meta, you wanna work at Google. Sure, you reach out to a Meta or Google engineer, you ask them, hey, can you refer me? You hand in your resume, they're like, sure, I'll put you in the system. You might get an interview. I mean, that's cool, but like nowadays, this is even a little too common for them to seem impressive or for it to be super effective. So you try out level 2. And if you're a basketball fan, this is what I call the LeBron James referral. So you know how whenever LeBron James wants someone on his team, he will get that person on his team, whether it's a friend like Dwayne Wade or even his own son. And why does this work? Well, because LeBron is a member of the Lakers organization and he has pull and warm connections. Similarly, you need to establish connections with hiring managers, or at least people who are connected with hiring managers. Have them review your resume and vet you out, because the hiring manager is the one who ultimately makes the decision if you're hired or not. And if they like you based on your resume, you will at minimum get a job interview. Level 3, and when it comes to networking and referrals, this is the most powerful one, and this one, if done right, you'll pretty much never have to physically apply to a job ever again. This is what I call inbound-based networking. I was recently talking to this one engineer a couple months ago, and he mentioned for the last 2 jobs he had, he never had to interview around. You know why? Well, because he regularly posts about his coding projects on Twitter, and the 2 startups he's been part of, the founder actually reached out to him via Twitter based on seeing his amazing projects that he's been doing. Because why would anyone have to evaluate you for your technical aptitude if you can prove that you can show your technical aptitude via the projects and your online presence? So post about impactful projects you worked on via LinkedIn, via Twitter. In fact, even me in this terrible job market, because of my online presence, I have hiring managers, founders, recruiters, and hiring agencies regularly reaching out to me for a job. And I'm not saying this to flex because thankfully I do have a job, but I'm saying this because if you do develop your online presence in the tech sphere properly, it can transform the landscape of your career going forward. All right, so you have your background, you have your experiences, you've applied to jobs, you've gotten referrals, and now you have interviews coming up and you need to pass your interviews in order to actually land that offer. So in this final level of the pyramid, we are going to be doing technical interview prep, and for that, I'm going to show you so many resources so you pretty much never fail a technical interview going forward. So first, you actually have to learn your data structures and algorithms. So for that, I have this thing called csviztool.com. It was actually developed by Georgia Tech, woohoo, my alma mater. And as you can see, we have many different data structures, many different algorithms, and it'll actually show you how to do it. So first, let's go into array lists. So say I wanted to add an item to an array list, like the number 2. It'll show the visualization of it being added, plus the code of it executing through. And if you didn't catch that, I can do it again. I can even lower the animation speed to help me understand better. So it shows the exact code, or actually pseudocode for this matter, of how to go through, so you'll understand it fundamentally. I found it especially useful for graphs, specifically depth first search, because you can put your start vertex and it'll show you the code that's going through, but it'll also show you the different variables and what they hold as it's going through. So as you can see, it shows you the list, the visited set, current vertex, and the recursive stack, so you know where the function calls are going, so it helps you keep track. Super helpful for recursion. And obviously we know depth first search can be implemented with a stack too. So it'll show how that is done and how the elements within the visited set and current vertex, the way it evaluates, changes just the slightest bit. I think this is an excellent resource for basic beginners to learn data structures and algorithms. But once you learn a little bit, I would actually say go onto visualgo.net. It'll show you even more data structures and algorithms. It'll show you a little more with the code. It'll just help you elevate your understanding to a more intermediate advanced level. Let's take a look at binary heap and let's actually construct it. So it'll show you the specific code. Now this is actually proper code. It's not just pseudocode. And it has the English of how it's going through it. So it tells you exactly what it's being done, how it's swapping its items as it's constructing the thing, because we either have a max heap or a min heap, so it needs to move things around, and how it maintains the efficiency of n log n. Yep, and we have our binary heap constructed. Overall, in combination of this resource and CSViz tool, I think this should be an excellent starting point for you. Once you understand your data structures and algorithms, we actually have to practice for technical interviews, and for that, we need to practice our Leetcode. Don't blindly go on leetcode.com because you need to identify the problems that you need to study. For example, if you have a technical coding interview for Amazon, you should do this. Search up Leetcode Amazon questions. And then boom, you get so many resources of previously asked Amazon questions. Specifically, this one website, Top Amazon Questions. You'll have a list of different questions that have been previously asked by Amazon. In fact, in my final round interview, I literally had this problem. Find the kth smallest pair distance. You can also use Reddit to identify this through Leetcode community. So we can search on Reddit, we can search on Leetcode for those specific ones. Okay, but let's just say you're on a problem and you're doing the longest substring without repeated characters and you're scratching your head. You know Python, but you just don't know how to piece together this problem. Don't worry, I have an excellent resource to help you out. So you take this Leetcode question, copy it, paste it into Google, space Geeks for Geeks, and then boom, the first link. So here in this Geeks for Geeks article, it'll pretty much walk you through the solution. It'll first give you a naive approach to solving the problem, plus then a few optimized approaches. And the reason I like it is it gives you many different programming language options, so you can understand it pretty easily. It gives you comments. And then if we scroll down, we get to see the optimized approach, and we can actually understand why it's optimized. It gives you visual diagrams to help you out with this. And plus it explains the time complexity and space complexity so you understand it even better. I don't recommend that you just copy and paste this into the Leetcode editor because then you actually learn nothing. But I do recommend you take a good look at this, read all the code, read all the English, read all the diagrams, and really understand it, and then close this window and then go back to the Leetcode and actually try to implement it for yourself. This way you actually understand, practice, and get better, and hopefully you can pass your technical interviews going forward. Well, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want a full in-depth video as to how I passed the coding interview in under 3 months, I want you to watch this video right here.